Okay, you ready for the cringe intro?
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone, welcome to this small video. So today I invited Skooma over, so welcome. And
Hello.
yeah, and we're gonna talk mostly about the release of Outward's Definitive Edition, some of the problems we think it had, and since I have Skooma over, we're necessarily gonna talk about bombs and special arrows because I think it's
Uh,
a subject
it's on
you're
topic.
yeah, it's a subject you're definitely interested in, from what I've heard. And I just want to start by saying that we don't want to hate on the devs on anything. Whatever we say is just as constructive criticism, and we know that what we're talking about is not going to change anything. It's just our thoughts on what could have been, and some of the changes we would have liked but did not end up being a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we're going to do some. We're going to just play in the background so it can be a chill conversation. And I guess, what do you want to start with?
Well, you've got a little list here, so I mean, we could probably just start at the top and work our way down.
Okay.
Probably be the easiest way to stay on task.
Okay, so I just want to. I'm going to start this with a small discussion with why I've written the first thing. So like, the beginning of my list is mostly about things I expected them to do because I think they did not demand that much effort, um, at least thinking effort to do. So, for example, with the definitive edition, I kind of expected them to put in some new enchantments because one of the fantastic things of enchantments is how it made a lot of equipment relevant when it was pretty useless in the past.
Yeah.
And there are so many items, especially unique and powerful items, that don't have specific enchantments or anything to make them more special. And I don't think enchantments are particularly hard to add in the game. And so I was surprised that they did not even try to make more enchantments because it's not something I think was too hard to add.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're not developers, right? So we can't sit here and say what's hard and what's easy and how the code works. Like, I don't understand any of that, but just based on the sheer scope of what they have accomplished and what they have added, what we've seen them add in patches and things, you're right. It doesn't seem like it would have been that big of an issue. I mean, pretty much almost every single one of my main uh, gripes, I guess, about the definitive edition uh, are things like that. It's things that just seem so small and simple, and it's not for the lack of, we definitely added into feedback, all the things that we wanted to see. And it wasn't just like me, right? It wasn't just me saying, hey, this, and they're like, oh, this guy's crazy. I mean, it's pretty universal. Everyone said, hey, we want these things, you know. And I mean, that's why we're making this video, right? Because we can all agree these are changes that we wish we would have seen, or and so yeah, so it does seem interesting that new enchantments weren't added, especially when we got we have mods that kind of do this and everything, and I don't know, maybe that's what the devs were thinking. Maybe they're thinking there's already mods that do this stuff, and it's not really what we wanted to do. And at the end of the day, it is their vision, right, and their time.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly added a whole lot more than they did. They added a lot of things I didn't expect them to add, and so that's really cool. And then, of course, we've talked about this too, but them giving it away for free and everything probably made a big impact in their decision making. So, but yeah, I just think that a few a few more enchantments for weapons that and equipment that is underused, especially unknown arena
Yeah.
item. You know, like so many of those are just they're just trash. I mean, I hate to say it, but no one uses them. No one
Yeah.
even it's a waste of your time to get them and craft them. And giving them a special enchantment or tweaking their stats a bit, you know, really was needed, and it just didn't happen. And that was very disappointing.
Because I remember whenever they added like the unknown arena, it was probably one of the most interesting things they did, because like it really gave us some kind of end game, and like the search for the arenas and all this was very, very enjoyable. I remember looking out for bosses. But it's true that whenever the Sorporians DLC came out, and I realized that all of the unique weapons in the game had no specific enchantments. And there was not even, like, because for example, one thing they could have, and there's a lot of weapons that don't have any interesting enchantments. Because, like, for example, they could have done some group enchantments like they did for some things. Like, all the weapons of this specific category get this enchantment. I'm thinking, for example, you could put all the monster weapons. I'm thinking Mantic's Great Pick, Manticore, and Thorny Spear. All these weapons could have had a category of enchantment for all of them, and maybe one or two that fit on all these weapons. Like, there was many things that could have been done, and especially I think it's very sad because, like, so the Outward got an end game, but the end game is worth it only for people who enjoy boss fights, not for the rewards, because most of the rewards are actually useless. There's maybe three boss items that are enjoyable to play with.
Yeah. Well, and that's the, and don't get me wrong, clearly, I mean, I've told you how many hours I have in this game, how much I love this game. I mean, the fact that we're still sitting here having a conversation about it, making content, shows clearly we're not trash talking the devs or anything. We love it. But that is the one thing I think Outward, that's its downfall, right? Like, that's its main issue, is that, I don't want to call it a downfall, but its downside, you know, like it has, it's like it's how do I say this? It just, everything seems, oh man, I should have prepared how I wanted to say this before we streamed. It's like an illusion, you know. It's like everything seems bigger and better than it is. So, you know, the number one thing we're constantly getting in the Discord, or people are messaging me about, or, you know, is how difficult this game is. You know, oh, it's a first time player here and it's so hard, and how do I get past this, and it's so overwhelming and huge. And like, I can totally see that from a perspective of someone who is new to the game. And, you know, back when we started, we didn't have the Discord or the wiki, or, you know, or we had the Discord, but we didn't have the information that was all on the wiki. And so, you know, all these things, even the unknown arena bosses, are meant to be a puzzle, you know, that you have to figure out, not go on Google and just YouTube it. So I can see that it's meant to be a long time investment. But at the end of the day, the majority of players, even though, and I know what Sk0oMa said, like, this game isn't for them. It's for old school players, don't want your handheld. Like, they had a dream and a vision, and this is who it's for. But at the end of the day, the people buying the game and playing it aren't those people. They are people who saw it from one of our videos or something. They're going to be the kind of player who's going to go straight to the wiki or go watch a bunch of YouTube videos on it because it's hard and they can't figure it out. Or they're dads and they don't have time to invest that kind of time into it. So they're not going to play multiple playthroughs and do every faction and do the legacy chests. They're going to play at one time, and they want to know how to min-max the best character for their one playthrough they're going to play. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, let's go kill the Wendigo.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Let's lure them all together. Let's lure everybody together at once.
Oh, I don't think I can survive that.
Oh, we can do fine. Let's let them fight a bit, and then I'll shoot him. Throw a lantern in the middle.
Okay. But yeah, I see what you mean. But at the same time, I it's not like I disagree, but I like one of the things I'm thinking about all this issue, especially when it comes to what you're saying, is that Outward is not that hard of a game in the end. Like there's
Right.
but the wall of entry is insanely high.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's what I was gonna say. It seems hard at the very beginning. Like, look at us. Like, what we're doing here is just like these guys are not scary. None of this is scary. I don't find anything scary, but so many people are like, "Oh my gosh, run!" You know, terrified of these enemies. Oops. And hold on, now I have to actually pay attention for just a second.
Yes, I, yeah, but it's like most people. I remember like so I follow the Reddit, the Outward Reddit a bit. Like there's a lot of very regularly new players coming and being completely destroyed by everything. And yeah, they could get completely destroyed by everything, but it's just because they most for all players, so they expect some of them just expected to play like a Soulscape. That's very funny, something that happens a lot. But it's mostly like once you've passed the outward wall of entry, nothing's really that hard.
Yeah, and so you get oh, here's some padded armor if you want it.
Yeah, I like that very much.
Yeah, this big fatty has it. So okay, so what I was saying, I'll go more in detail about it. So when you get to Endgame, right, you have here, let's we'll pause for a second so I can think and get my thought out. So when you get to Endgame, this is what I mean by like it's an illusion. So they have Unknown Arena, right? As you kind of touched on this already. Like you go through it and you're wanting to grind them out to get all the things so you can craft all the different things. But like you said, it's really only for collectors who just want to collect everything because you're not going to use almost any of it. And even if you were going to use it, you're going to legacy it. You're not going to use it on that character. And that's the other sad thing is like most players who have played this game pretty religiously, like really are good at it. They don't use the legacy system either. They're split screening and dropping things to each other, you know, unless, you know, or using debug if they're on the PC, just to save time. And so that's unfortunate, you know. But like, so you're on Endgame and you're killing Unknown Arena bosses, and then they were like, okay, well that's not enough. So let's add the town building, and that could have been implemented in such a different way, but it's such a grind fest. And even with the definitive edition and the patches, when they went in and they you know, I'm doing air quotes, they fixed it so that it's not as grindy, or that like you could do the samples, which was kind of a clever fix, I guess, with the how every 10 you get like a one of your choice, so
Yeah,
that helped.
I think
But again,
that's one of the best
even
fixes of the DE.
right, but even now everyone hates it. Nobody likes building New Sk0oMa, and that's not a good sign. But like that's not it. It's not a good thing whenever your entire player base hates like a whole section of your game, and when that section is supposed to be the end game and everyone hates it, no one's gonna play end game.
Yeah.
You know, and so like we'll grind it out, and we will, you know, we'll build 1 or 2 towns so that we can have the arenas available and the things that we need for, again, split screening characters, you know, to get the skills we need right at the beginning, because that is like, again, we're getting to that things of like things that weren't added that should have been. There's too many things that are locked behind that wall, that end game wall. Like, hey, these weapon skills, these passive skills that you can get at the the trainers,
Yeah.
they're you don't get them till so like the end. Like you can't even build the arena until like partway through the New Sirocco quest line. It's not like if you could build it and get it as soon as you unlocked New Sirocco, like you beat your main faction, you can get it. There's still a lot of time that you could utilize it and it could be worth it. But you don't. You don't even you have to wait a little while before you can get it. You have to do some quests and unlock the ability to do it. And by the time you get it, game's over, man. By the time you are able to unlock and advance your alchemist to the Fletcher and get the cool arrows so that you can actually play as an archer and utilize those things for fun gameplay, it's over, man. By the time you get grenades, it's over.
Yeah, so let's
And
actually touch on arrows and grenades, because that's
yeah,
probably one of the main reasons why I asked you to have this conversation with me. Because
yeah,
so we've had this conversation when the definitive edition was actually released. I remember we talked about this pretty early on, and so I personally was so I actually never really used bombs, but I think 99% of players never use bombs. I actually used special arrows, but it's exactly as you said. So I used special arrows when I finally decided to make a hardcore run of the game, and I got them so late, and I only used the special arrows in the final boss fight, and but for 90% of the game I was not able to access the feature.
yeah. And like, obviously, I complained a bunch in the Discord feedback, you know,
Yeah,
and
I
I
was there.
was pretty vocal for a very long time about these changes that needed to happen. And so, you know, obviously, I was very happy that they listened, that they did take that feedback and incorporate it in a way that was, whoops, he's coming at me, not you. You know, did it in a way. They listened, is what I'm saying. They listened and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, they want this. But they didn't. Hold on, that flamethrower is loud.
No, sorry.
I lost my train of thought. Flamethrower was right in my ear.
Oh shit.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
They were interrupting us, and I'm trying to talk. So they listened, but not. And we kind of had this conversation the other day when you called me, where I was like, you know, when your wife says, you know, hey, I want you to do the dishes. No, not like that. Hey, I want you to, you know, make dinner. No, not like that. Will you take out the trash? No, not like that. You know, it's like you're very specific about what you want, and then, but we're not going to do it that way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know. It was just, it was very, we were very, very specific. I even offered solutions, obvious, easy solutions. You know, just let us buy them. Let us buy them.
Which is something they did for other things, by the way.
Well, right. And they did. They were like, hey, definitive edition, and then, you know, patch, we're going to fix this so that you can, here, you can have all that. You know, the individual shops will have, oh, there's an alchemy kit. Nice. You know, depending on who they are or like what location you're in, they'll have either a certain type of arrow or a certain type of bomb that's for sale, and that's cool. And that was great. I was like, cool, way to implement that. But it is still kind of random, and which isn't awesome. And but fair, balances the game. I can see it's whatever. It's just it's a pain in the butt to try and collect enough to actually do anything with the bombs, and that was kind of most people's issue with the bombs. Was just how hard they are to get until you're able to. Well, first of all, they were impossible to get, but then now that they're still really hard to get until you're able to get the Fletcher and buy them, or the Alchemist and buy them. and because of the way bombs work, they're slow. They have a delay on them. Oh, dude, rude. You need a bunch. Most people need a bunch, to justify using them because they miss with so many of them, and whatchamacallit. I lost my train of thought when we had that fight. What was I saying?
That people needed a lot of bombs because they miss.
Oh, so the devs added it. They listened and they were like, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do. We know you guys have been saying you really want earlier access to the bombs and the arrows. I know that you guys are saying that they add diversity to the game's builds and play styles, and really that improves games, right? That's just wonderful.
Hey, skooma.
I know there's a bomb right.
Yeah, take this. I took it. It's fair.
Oh. You took my bomb. So I'm gonna scrap all this. I need to stop playing for a second so I can't do two things at once. I'm so bad at this. This is why I rarely ever stream, because I don't. People hate me. I don't talk to them whenever I'm streaming. I'm either playing or I'm streaming or talking. I'm not doing both. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause here for a second. Yeah, so they're like, yeah, we hear you, and we get that it makes the game better, and there's no by gatekeeping it, it's not doing any good. Like there's really absolutely no reason for us to not give it to you guys early. It's what you want. It doesn't break the game. It's pretty balanced, especially if you have to buy them. It's not like we're, so it's like, cool, we'll give them to you guys, but not like that. It's like it was so easy. It's like, oh my gosh, all you had to do was make the blacksmiths be able to sell the bomb and the arrow crafting kits. Just let them sell the kits. Let the caravanners sell special arrows or bombs, like special things, because they like the traveling ones. They travel. It makes sense. You could get some of the special ones from ornate chests. That wouldn't have been hard to add those to the loot drop. And and then pick your special ones, like the black market trader in Levant that you have to unlock. Could have easily sold all of the bombs, the arrows, the crafting kits for them. Like, you could have just used her, by the way. You didn't even have to integrate them into all of the other vendors. Just give it to the black market trader that you have to unlock. Like, that would have been a really cool way to implement it so that we could get it early on.
Well, the thing that surprised them... Yeah, sorry?
No, I'm just saying, but still had to work for it. There was nothing unbalanced about it, and it would have made so many things so much better. And instead, they were like, we're just going to super randomize it and spread them around between different vendors in each city that you have to kind of go all over the place for. And like, hey, I'm not complaining. At least we got something better than just flaming arrows. And because that was their first quote unquote fix, was when we complained, hey, the only way you can get arrows and bombs early is if you go all the way to Caldera to get them. Give us full world integration. And they did that to us. They were like, okay, cool, we'll implement all the DLC stuff everywhere. So we're like, cool, now we can get bombs and arrows here, except you couldn't. You couldn't find the drop rate was so abysmal you couldn't find anything.
Yeah, only in supply crates, if my memory is correct.
Right, and only in supply crates, and again, it was still a very small drop rate, and you still could only get what you could find in Caldera. You could only get the poison arrows and the fire arrows and the frag bombs and the oil bombs, the most basic crappy things that, right? You couldn't get any of that cool other stuff. You couldn't craft any of that other stuff yourself. You couldn't do anything until Endgame. And so, like I said, it has been implemented in a way that I guess I'm satisfied with. If they never fix it, we got better than nothing. But it is disappointing that it's still not in a way that, like I said, what's the word? Promotes diversity in builds and play styles, so that if I wanted to create a brand new character and say, hey, I want to be an elemental archer, a new player with access to crafting their enchanted arrows, and could have done that and could have utilized them, in a way that's not. They're still expensive. The materials are still hard to find, so you still have to kind of, make choices and gauge, like, hey, is this an enemy tough enough that I want to use this elemental arrow on it? Do I want to use these on them? But now you don't get enough. You don't get enough of them, especially the bombs.
It's just the thing I wanted to say is that what surprised me the most is how some of the DLC features were so well integrated in the Definitive Edition. I'm thinking, for example, I love what they did with the enchanting implementation. Like, it's so easy to find elementals in most of the regions now, and some Dreamer's Root too. You can buy some enchanting tables and pillars in anywhere in the game now. So I think this was very well implemented. I think it's also very similar for totems, like the way they put the totem crafting stations.
I liked that. That was a good implementation.
Like, they made these things so well, and then for bombs
how
and
they
arrows,
made it how they made those totem crafting stations where you could craft the totems with local materials. That was really cool. And you're right. They implemented something so well that seemed like they were really thought out. And then other implementations just seemed kind of lazy. Seemed kind of like an afterthought. Like, oh yeah, we forgot. We said we were going to do this. And the sad thing is that the majority of the things that were well thought out and implemented were things we never even asked for. And all the things that we asked for, that we really wanted, were the things that seemed like an afterthought. And that was the disappointing thing. Again, like we've said, bombs and arrows being one of the number one things. The lack of extra enchantments, and the fact that, like, so many pieces of equipment, weapons, unknown arena or otherwise, are just unusable. They're just quickly outclassed and not good. None of that was addressed, really. I'm trying to look at this list here.
Yeah, I don't worry. I'm going to, because I think we can still, because I remember it well because I made it. But I think we can still.
Right.
We should probably.
No, right here. The so many armors and weapons in the debug menu that weren't implemented.
Yeah.
And then the one that was, as like their special reward, they were like, we finally gave you Zegas boots.
Yeah, it was so, and it ended up being a nerf of the rest of the set.
I know. It was like you nerfed the rest of the set that everyone loved using, so the set sucks now, and the boots are terrible. Like, oh my gosh, I would have rather just kept running around with my scaled leather boots and actually been able to use the Zegas set, because then it was actually, it's one of the cooler aesthetic
the chest
sets
plate.
in the game.
The chest
and now
plate
you
is
can't
insane.
even justify using it for fashion because it's crap. So that was a major disappointment. Yeah.
And I was thinking, for example, so I've already spoken about this sometimes, but like there's some items that are in the debug for balance reasons, and I don't understand. One of them is, for example, the vampiric shield. I don't get why they did not introduce a vampiric shield into the game.
Well, every debug item except for the fidget spinner, I guess.
The Chalcedonian.
There's an actual fidget spinner. Every single one of them could have been implemented and was not. They have whatchamacallit, they all have models.
Yeah.
They've all been fleshed out really well. They all have, most of them have stats, like, that aren't even broken. Why were they not implemented? Why were they not just, like, officially added into the game in some, like, that was one of the ones that was like, that seems like super easy. Like, I can't understand what the possible reasoning would have been, that they would have been like, oh yeah, we didn't have time to implement those. Like, they're already in the game.
Yeah, but I remember having a conversation about this with, I don't remember who exactly. And apparently they said it was for balance issues. And like,
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but to me it doesn't make sense. Why would the vampiric shield an item that's hard to get and not even that strong because it would only lifesteal on shield charge, why would would it be a balance problem?
Well, and you notice they added that new shield that you get, that
but it's,
the ghost one. But like, and it's not a great shield. It's basically, isn't it pretty much like a exact copy of another shield? Like it does the same thing.
yeah, but weaker.
Yeah, but weaker. So it's a cool looking shield that you have to go through this whole thing for, but it's a weaker copy of a shield that already exists.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even in the debug menu before. It was like a whole brand. They spent time creating a whole new thing when they could have just given us.
It's basically recycled assets because it's a transformed version of the old Legion shield.
That's true with the skulls on it now, but my point is like they still had to spend time to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll just take these things. So it just doesn't make the balance thing. Just seems like an excuse, and it seems like a lazy excuse. Like, balance issues. Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to take your word for it then, because I don't know. So that's just like the go-to excuse, I think, and I'm not about that.
Yeah, one of the I think I think we can still like try and talk about some of the good things too. It's like the definitive edition was definitely had definitely some very
start
good
on our grind, like I mean.
But for example, I think one of the first comments I ever made about Outward when I reviewed it, that some of the systems were not fleshed out enough. And one of my biggest complaints was how boring and underused a lot of the death scenarios were. And I actually really like the way they've added some new ones. Some of them are very cool, so I don't die as much anymore. But like they've implemented some very cool new death scenarios that I think
agreed.
Finally made this system something interesting.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my biggest gripes back then too, was death scenarios were pointless. They were absolutely pointless. That was my thing. Like outside of hardcore mode, now that's still, we'll go back to a gripe here in a minute about hardcore mode. But like outside of hardcore mode, death was, not only was it not something to be afraid of, but it was beneficial more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, dude, stop it. Sit down. Trying to talk and this guy keeps doing stuff and you keep jumping in front of my lanterns. So yeah, so that was definitely a big gripe of mine, and they fixed that tremendously. It was like, hey, I don't need to die, or I can die to just fast travel straight to Monsoon, for example. There's all these things. And then, yeah, well, we've already touched about that. Like they fixed that so well. I was so happy about the way they did. They added all the different death scenarios. Now it's like sometimes I'll die. Like I went through a whole playthrough, just kept dying just to figure out the death. Because I was like, it's so cool. Like now and that was the other thing too, is like, I don't care about death scenarios that are like cool little stories or cool little things or whatever. Like I want something that punishes me for dying. And they did that. So many things actually are now like, oh crap, like that sucks.
They
now
still
the
did
bandits...
some. I don't really agree with you on the small story ones, because I think some of the small story ones are very interesting. And it's
No, I didn't say that those weren't necessary. I think those are cool, but that's all there was before.
Mm-hmm.
Implementing ones that are actually punishing means that now when I die, it's a gamble of, do I get something that's going to be actually like a cool little story thing that's like, oh man, I'm relieved, and now I'm actually excited because I'm like, oh, that's neat. I'm learning like a cool little thing. But it can also just be something absolutely terrible,
Yeah.
And the only time you ever got that feeling before was when you played in hardcore mode, and it was like, am I going to lose my character or am I not? And you never cared what your defeat scenario was because you didn't care. It was uninteresting. Like by that
Yeah.
point, it was just like either I died or I didn't. That's all I cared about. And now it's like, hey, what's going to happen? You know, now even if you're playing in hardcore mode, whatever your defeat scenario is, just because you don't die or like permadeath doesn't mean that it's not still going to be really bad for you. You know.
Yeah, because there's a lot of death scenarios that put you at the risk of dying again.
Again,
And
yeah. Or losing all like that was my big thing too. I was like, dude, like I always said when the base game came out that it always felt like, you know, Sierra's. You could tell where they started. They started in Sierra. That's like all the new players are like, it's so hard, and that's because this is where you spend all your time, right, before you leave this area. And it just seemed like everything was spent here and in Enmerker.
yeah.
Like all their time and effort was put into these two areas because Enmerker got an abundance of mini bosses and artifact weapons. You know,
Yeah.
They had everything. It's like everywhere you turn, there's a new artifact weapon in the forest. And then here you get all the cool. Whenever you were in Sierra, this was the only place where you got actual defeat scenarios that mattered.
Yeah,
right.
that's
This
true.
was the only place where you could, but when, you know, where the bandits would get you, or you know, you'd be dragged to the hyena cave. Like this was the only place where that mattered, and you can talk to her whenever you want.
Yeah, it is.
And all,
I'm just listening because it's interesting.
yeah. And then it was also the only place where your decisions, hold on. Well, now I've got to find her.
Oh, she one-shotted me.
Okay.
My bad.
Dude, I can't. Stupid table.
But yeah, like I agree with you. Like it's always felt, especially when it comes to death scenarios, like all the good death scenarios, like for example, Vendaval had an entire story around death scenarios, but it was only something in the main region, in the first region. Now it has changed. There's some very unique scenarios in every region, and I think they fixed the system very, very well compared to how underexploited it was before. And so there's other good things, like for example, so we can keep talking about this subject in particular. I think the implementation of the mini bosses in every single dungeon was also a very nice change, because it finally, even if most of these enemies are reskins and resized and color swaps, I still think that it was pretty well made, and especially like they gave some interesting rewards in every dungeon, some materials that you could, or weapons that you could not usually get. Like for example, one of the best implemented ones is the one you can find in Stone Titan caves. So for two reasons. The main one being that it's a very interesting lore queue, and the second one is because it finally gives us a way to reliably get the inner marble shield, which was one of the most painful items to get before the definitive edition. And I definitely think the mini bosses made every dungeon kind of relevant now. Well, it was definitely not the case before.
That was something I wasn't expecting them to add. So whenever I found out that they added those, pretty much every dungeon, not all of them. There's one in particular that I was really disappointed didn't have one.
Which one?
But the blue sand, the starfish cave.
Oh,
right at the beginning, because that area, when you get down in there, it's so huge. And there's just that one little pistol shrimp in there, and you think, oh, hey, I'm gonna go down into that little cave. There's like there's not even loot in there. There's no reason to go into that big open water area.
Oh, except for blue sand forming.
No, there's not even blue sand in there.
Yeah, there is down. There's 1 or 2 spots down there.
No. I'm not talking about the ones when the water drops down and you go down there and get the 2 sand. I'm talking about once you drop down in there, there's a whole nother area of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Okay.
like a whole nother room that's huge, and there's nothing in there, and it would have been perfect for a little for a boss like that you have to fight in there. You know, like a giant pistol shrimp or something.
But it's like, but most of the time, like I think it's one of the one of the things that was very well made, and I think we can agree that like because like if we just keep talking, because we're mostly going to talk about the negatives, but I also want us to acknowledge that there were some good things too, and I think that overall the definitive edition was kind of a positive, and like if today someone had to discover Outward, I would always recommend them to go for the definitive edition because it's definitely a better version of the game and a way better version in some regards than the base game was.
I think in all regards, I do think it is still better. I don't recommend anybody like play the base game. Like there's just so much added to definitive edition that it's like, I mean, you lose way too much.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that you don't have Soroborians, you don't have enchantments. I mean, even stats on things are changed. So like, I don't even like giving advice to people playing Old World because things are just different, you know? And while it's not that different, it is different enough that like some builds might not work the way they're supposed to or whatever, you know? And so yeah, I would never go back to Old World. And you're right, yeah. I mean, when you make a video like this, you are going to be talking about the negatives more than the positives because like I said, going into this, clearly the positives outweigh the negatives because we're making content on it. We're still playing it. You know, we're still enjoying it. We still love it. So it doesn't feel like there's as much reason to talk about the positives because the positives speak for themselves that we're still here. But you're right. Just so it doesn't sound like a shit fest of the death. Hey, we hate you guys, and here's all the things you do wrong. You know, it is nice to also say you guys are awesome, and here are some things that we're really happy that you implemented, and things that you implemented very well, things that you went above and beyond that we didn't even ask for. Like the mini bosses on all the areas, like that's a really cool thing. I think that the changes to the protection stat was phenomenal. That was huge. That's probably the biggest balance change in the entire definitive edition. That just I mean that changed everything, you know.
It's such a nice change. Like it felt very good.
Oh yeah. Before I was a dang it, you keep stepping in front of my bullets.
Yeah, sorry.
I keep shooting you in the head. Before it was I mean you can go back in the Discord and look up conversation history. I was one of the biggest trash talkers of protection. I said it's not worth it. There's no point in ever getting protection. I would choose armor with physical protection over protection.
Yeah.
Which like your unknown arena armor is even more trash. You know? Hold on, I gotta drop a bunch of arrows. I've got way too many.
But yeah, overall the changes to protection stats
yeah,
was just very.
And so that alone made a bunch of armors actually usable again. This guy's gonna be pretty tough. I'm gonna have to just lantern him up. Because he's a tough cookie. I went the wrong way.
You mean the skeleton in the cave?
Yeah, he's down here. So we gotta go all the way back.
Yeah, I always have a hard time finding it.
Oh.
Shit.
You know what was funny with as long as I've played this game, this area is the area I am the least. They've already respawned over there. Look at that. That's talking about things that I'm happy that they implemented, but I wish would have been implemented a little bit differently. Is the world feels less empty now? Because that was one of the biggest things. Is like the overworld always felt so empty. You know, everyone called it a walking simulator, and and the only time you ever really fought anything was in was when you went into dungeons. And now they fixed that because you saw, we just killed enemies, we left, and we turned around and
I
there's
died
more.
again. I'm not paying attention enough. Sorry.
So that's an implement that I'm really happy about, because I think that it made it to where, like I said, the overworld feels a lot more busy and lively, and dangerous, which is really cool. But I also think that, like I said, it could have been done a little bit differently. That was instant. You saw, we just walked over there, turned around, and there was more guys. Like, where'd they even come from? For a new player, that's daunting. You know what I mean? That's like, I can't even backtrack the way I came.
Yeah.
You know, because there's enemies again already. They've already respawned. You know, that's like, imagine if Dark Souls did that. You know what I mean? It's already like, oh, if I use the campfire, then, you know, everything's back. You can tell how much I don't play Dark Souls. It's not even called a campfire, right?
Well, it depends. On the Souls games, it's a bonfire, but like in Elden Ring, they change it to Grace, Sites of Grace.
Yeah.
But everyone still calls them bonfire anyway.
Whatever. Those games suck compared to Outward, so I don't even care.
I don't really agree, but that's another entire debate.
all games suck compared to Outward. Outward's best game all time. So before we go in there and get it handed to us, let's talk for a second.
Yeah.
So I think they could have implemented that a little bit differently and kind of slowed down the rate of enemies respawning. But from a veteran player who really enjoys getting out there and doing stuff, I like that they respawn so quickly and that I can just like always be fighting things. That's pretty fun. But yeah, I do. I'm gonna some things that aren't on your list that I really want to talk about that didn't get changed. That seems like such an easy fix also. Why can I still not see my offhand stats in my menu?
Yeah, okay, I see.
What the hell? Like, what drives me crazy? Especially as a player who, when I play guns, I don't even use a main hand weapon. I want to know how much my gun does. Yeah. I want to know how much my dagger does. So that drives me crazy that was not implemented. That is the biggest fail. And then obviously it would have been nice to be able to rearrange our skills menu, or at least have like an auto sort button that would sort them, as opposed to just getting them as you get them. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a real rhyme or reason for how things are in the skills menu, and that's really frustrating. They added, this is what they did add, quality of life. The tabs, you can go through your tabs and see all these different things. They did add in the crafting menu now, you have the different tabs. That's really cool. And I love, and one thing they implemented, I love that you can see
recipes.
You can see recipes of things even if you don't have your alchemy kit or your cooking pot. Like, adding those to your crafting tab was awesome. So I'm so glad they implemented that. That was huge. But if you can add that, you could have done the same thing to our skills tab, and you definitely could have let me see my offhand. I mean, look, open up your menu, look at the equipment tab.
Oh yeah, I'm in there right now.
There's even a whole space for it. There's like a whole empty area you could have put offhand attack. And
especially it's especially the case. So I'm doing, sometimes I'm doing this outward shield only run, and it's very frustrating to be using only an offhand weapon and not being able to really have any idea how much damage you deal.
And this is just a nitpicky thing. I wish that there was just like maybe a way to toggle this on or off, or just to not do it. but as someone like you've probably experienced this as a shield only build. As someone who only uses my offhand, I don't use a main hand. And I don't, like I said, nitpicky. I don't imagine them
The
changing
auto equipping weapons you
the
pick up.
auto equip drives me crazy, man. Like I want to just pick up all the iron swords so I can scrap them for iron for my bullets, but there's always one auto equipping on me, and
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Though I completely understand what you mean, it's also very frustrating for me. I think it's a bit nitpicky at this point.
Mhm.
I agree. It's not like the most important thing in the world,
Yeah.
clearly.
No. So like that's when that would have been a quality of life thing that I wish it wouldn't do, but yeah, I just wanted to complain about my play style for a minute. I don't imagine there's really many other people who run around playing with only a gun and no main hands, but um I'm stubborn. Uh
Okay, so we've talked about most of the things I wanted to
mhm.
talk about, and since I don't want this to be too long, I don't know how long it is, but it's probably pretty long already. I just want us to make our conclusion on the why I think personally think they should not have given the definitive edition for free. I don't know. Do you want to
Okay.
start about this, or do you want me to start?
I'll let you start. Do you think you can talk while we kill this ghost?
Yeah, I can probably. I'm low on the health already, so you'll probably do most of the work.
Well, here, so you're not dying. I picked this up in Vendeville. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah, but I so since I die, I have no max health, so it's not going to change much.
Oh, all right. We'll keep it just in case. Whatever.
So
You can start.
yeah. One of the main reasons is so Outward. One of the main things about Outward is something you see on YouTube and everywhere, is that so it's a game that first of all attracts people that are relatively old. The age range of Outward player is something between 20 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
So the community is already a community that's pretty old compared to a lot of gaming communities. Not saying so. There's a lot of old people who play games. It's like something pretty common, but most game communities are not that young, well, that old, in general. And so yeah. And the other thing is that it's a community that because it's not a very easy game. It has a lot of kind of old school mechanics in a way. Like the size of a community of the Outward community is necessarily not going to be that big. And one of the main problem with giving the definitive edition for free and any DLC for free is that most of the people who have who are going to buy new Outward content already play the game. And
Right.
so one of the main reasons, so I think I've heard Guillaume said that they lost money in the definitive edition. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that all the people who would have bought the definitive edition, well, actually got it for free because they gave it for free to anyone who had bought the DE, who had bought the base game and the DLCs.
Yeah.
So as a big Outward fan, and I would have bought a definitive edition. And so what my personal thoughts are, I think they should have maybe taken a bit more time to make the definitive edition, put maybe a bit more things into it, and then sell it as basically a DLC.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, a DLC. Seriously though, because there's so many new players that come to it, like they could have just sold it. They could have just sold it as a new game, as I don't know. I see what you're saying. Sell it as a DLC, and then that way people who already had it could just upgrade it to it. But you still had to have the base game for it. So
Yeah.
either way, it's like new players have to buy both, and then they have it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they could have just done it as a DLC, definitive. And now I don't understand what the reasonings are. I imagine that there's some changes to coding and programs and the things that they added that made it to why it had to be a separate game.
Mm.
Um, and again, I don't know what those are, so I'm not going to speak on that really. But yeah, I think, and I'm a person who, I mean, I bought this game over 30 times for various different people on various different consoles to try and get them
Mm.
to, play it with me or just, hey, you guys should play this game. It's really cool. And so I'll gift it to them. Um, but like, I'm uh, an exception, not a rule. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
not everyone's buying the game 30 times. So I didn't make a dent. You know what I mean? Like, that's not helping their overall, like, hey, we made a ton of money. I'm like, it definitely doesn't make up for giving Definitive Edition for free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, um, and so for a game that I love so much and I want to see a sequel to, I feel like it really hinders the chances of there being a sequel for the fact that they gave it away.
Yeah.
Um, and that's disappointing. I think that as you said, the player base is older, so they have typically they're going to be able to afford a game. If they love it and they want to support it, no one's really going to complain. And honestly, well, that doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter if it's older, or younger. Like, younger kids have expendable income and they get their parents to buy it for them. So people are going to get the game. If they love it and they want to support it, and most gamers do support games they love. And uh yeah, so I don't know. And then like people who are I don't know, man. I'm with you. I think it should have cost something. And they should have spent more time on it. We all could have waited. It definitely, like, they did wait a little bit, but still came out a little too soon to Elden Ring.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
So that hurt. Maybe that's why they gave it away for free. I don't know.
Well,
Like there's games out right now that like I wanted to play, but they all came out right around the same time. So I was like, half of these I'm never gonna play because they're all games that require a ton of investment.
Mm.
And so you don't want to come out around the time of a huge game that is highly anticipated. So yeah, they should have spent a lot more time on it. I would have been willing to wait another year if they would have really listened to the community in the our feedback in the Discord. They would have really implemented all the things that we said. I come back to the whole, hey, asking your wife, where do you want to, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? What do you want? Well, I want sushi. Okay, well, here's a cheeseburger. I fed you, but I didn't give you what you wanted.
Mm.
I gave you food, which is what you wanted, but it's not the food you wanted. And that's what they did. They fed us. They just didn't feed us what we wanted. And it's really disappointing. And they should have spent more time on it. And
I
my thoughts there again. I'm going to defend them one more time. They have other projects.
Yeah,
They have other
that's what I
things.
was gonna say.
They technically didn't even have to give us Definitive Edition. They've done so much more as devs for a game that was a small indie game without a huge following than ever could have been expected. Devs don't do that. Dev companies don't do that. They comment on all of our YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Like they're cool. So they really have done a lot more they have gone above and beyond. So what we're doing now is really we're just saying and for any devs who watch this, we're not shitting on you guys. We're saying we love this game so much that we wish you would have just spent the rest of your life working on this game to make it even better and add in all the things that we wanted. Instead of moving on to another game that's not going to be near as cool as Outward, because Outward is the greatest game ever.
Well, we don't we don't know that yet.
It'll be as cool as Outward if it's Outward 2.
Yeah, but we know they're not working on Outward 2. Like they've clearly said that. So,
I know. So again, you know,
but it's like okay. So I also want to defend them because like from what I've heard, they've also had some problems with their publisher changing or something like this. So they really did not have it easy either.
hmm
And so I like you, I agree on the fact that I'm still very pleased that they spent so much time on a small game like that, and
yeah.
I love how they interact with the community this much, and so I don't want to throw them the stone for doing something good overall. It's just that we think I personally think that it does not hurt sometimes to give a little bit of constructive criticism, especially considering that Nine Dots overall is a pretty young studio in the end,
Yeah.
and that I think any kind of community feedback, even if this feedback is not going to have any impact directly on the game, I think any kind of community feedback is still something that can be considered useful, especially for future projects. And so I'm gonna maybe let you conclude, but I just want to make a small pre-conclusion. Um, I just want to say that I wish Nine Dots and every single person working there the best on their new project, and I can tell them that I'll be waiting for whatever they make, and I hope it's good because I think you guys have some talent, and you like I have 1,000 hours of this game. It means something. I
Yeah.
love what you did, and I can't wait to love what you will do. And so yeah, I leave
Oh.
you. I leave you the conclusion.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of already talking on, so, but I'll expand on yours. Yeah. The, as I like, my conclusion was like, yeah, I want them to know we're not talking trash on them or complaining about all the things that they did wrong. Because I know that the things like this can definitely feel that way. Um, we say these things and we talk about these things and we're having a video about it because of how much we love the game and how much um, I mean, we play it and we wish these things would be implemented and we could still do some of these things, but it's not a deal breaker. We still are playing. And I wish them all the success too. They've definitely got a follower, a fan for life. Whatever games they create, it's like old Atlas games. I'll buy anything if Atlas is on it, you know. And they've, now it's I'll buy anything with it says Nine Dots. Easy, not even I don't even got to think about it. And it's because of not only because the game is great, but because the way they have handled things, done things, their communication and correspondence through Discord. They're just they're unique
Hmm.
and they're really great. And I I'm gonna be around Outward for quite a long time, even if the game starts to die. I mean, I just submitted to take over admin privileges of the wiki.
Hmm.
Uh, so waiting on approval of that. But like I'm not going anywhere. I've got thousands of hours in this game, and I plan to still be around for more because this is a really great game, and I want to be here to help new players when they come along. When the Discord people are going to show up. Nothing feels quite as bad as joining a Discord and it just being silent.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll play this game into the ground until the day Outward 2 comes out, and then I swap over.
Hmm.
um, the world they have created, the story, and we could go on and on about just how impressive that is with the one guy doing it and the short amount of time he did, and their dev team is so impressive, and they've managed to fit so much into this game already. That's just such a small indie game. Uh, that I don't even mind that our characters look like potatoes. So and to me, man, uh, that's saying a lot because character customization is my number one thing
Yeah.
that I look for in a game.
Well, it's not maybe
Um,
not my number one thing, but I really love character
it is
customization.
definitely my number one. Fallout, Skyrim, even Elden Ring. Like I will play those games because of the character creation. But here's the thing: I couldn't even keep playing Elden Ring as good as the character customization was and fun. I couldn't keep playing it because
Mm.
it didn't it wasn't good. It didn't hold my attention.
Well, don't say it
And
wasn't good because I think it was good.
it
But
was good. It was good for like a week. Like
ah, I
it drops off so fast.
I
Um,
don't really agree, but I think it's more down to your personal taste than anything.
yeah, sure. We can agree to disagree on Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring had a lot of potential,
Well, it's not a
but
perfect game, but it's like
yeah,
we can talk about Elden Ring another
yeah,
time if you will.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Because that would
Um,
definitely be another interesting conversation.
it really would, yeah, because Elden Ring is that okay. I will just make a quick comparison outward to Elden Ring, and then we can cut it off. You know, and it's because it's kind of on topic. Earlier, I was talking about how like the bombs and the arrows not being introduced early means
Mm.
that it's kind of taken away from build diversity. You know, um, and so even though that's like my complaint is like, oh hey, yeah, we don't have arrows and bombs early, so we've lost out on like two cool, you know, different styles of builds that we could have that aren't there. We still have huge build diversity. Elden Ring does not.
Mm.
Elden Ring is like you play this and yes, there's a bunch of other weapons and stuff in the game, like an overwhelming amount of things to be like, let's customize and make it, but no, you can't use any of that. It won't work for you. So good luck with that. That is why Elden Ring failed me, right?
Mm.
Because I have specific play styles I like to play, and I can't play that in Elden Ring. At least not in a way that um, that's satisfying. So
Mm.
like let's say I want to play as this, I want to play an archer or whatever, and I go and I'm doing it and I can be powerful and I can kill things and I can make it through all the content, most of it. There's some bosses that's just like, nope, you can't do this. But then I pick up a sword. Doesn't even matter what my build is. My stats can be all off, but I can pick up like this specific weapon with this one specific skill on it, and no investment whatsoever, and just start destroying
Yeah,
things
yeah.
with it. Like, oh wow, like I invested all my time and effort into making this build work, and it's still crappy compared to no investment weapon. Like
Mm.
that is a massive game design flaw, and so I couldn't keep playing the game. That's why I quit Elden Ring. On that note, that reminds me there was a topic that we were going to talk about, things that shoot, and now I just lost it. As I was saying that story, I remembered that there was a topic that we talked about, and then I forgot it. So it must not have been super important. I guess we can just wrap it up.
Yeah. So yeah, I just am going to conclude by saying that Outward is an amazing game. If you're discovering the game through this video, I which I doubt, to be honest, especially this far into the video. There's probably 1 hour and a half already. But yeah, I really encourage people to give this game a try. And I want to say that I'm very happy to have been supporting Nine Dots and that I will support them in their future projects. They're probably one of the few companies I think can deliver something good without too many lies and shit. So yeah, that's. I think I'm probably going to call this video an Outward Definitive Edition retrospective, because that's kind of what we did.
Yeah,
And,
I think so.
And yeah, so thank you very much, Skooma, for having this conversation with me.
Yeah, for sure. I remembered what it was too, by the way, that we had talked
Oh yeah, you
about.
can just touch on it quickly.
And I'm gonna touch on it real quick, and then you can do another
Outro.
conclusion. It's like the outward Lord of the Rings ending, right? End it 30 times. Um, we had talked about, we were talking, when I was talking about build diversity and things that were implemented or changed that, uh, we asked for so many things they didn't give us, and then they gave us, they fixed, I'm doing air quotes again, things that no one asked for.
Oh, you're talking about
Like,
Hexmate, right?
like changing torment, the way now it no longer triggers all of the hexes, it only does one of them. The way that they took away the most interesting interaction in the game with the way that jinx worked, how it used to have a memory and you could target things even if you could jinx them even if you were no longer targeted on them, and alternate between enemies. It was just such a unique and cool style of play that did not hurt the game. It did nothing but add variety and build depth and interesting things, good things to the game, and they took it away. It's like, oh well, that doesn't work the way we wanted it to. Well, who cares? It was a Bob Ross moment, happy accident. Let it stay. These are things that we discovered, we liked, we wanted them to stay. And so on top of adding in a bunch of things that were cool, they also added in a bunch of things nobody asked for, and we wish that they wouldn't have changed. So on that, final conclusion, go.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on something because I see that my character is very tired, and if I don't speak about that, I'm definitely gonna get killed by.
Bandage is green now. I hate it.
I hate this. That's one of okay. When I did my Outward Definitive Edition review, that was literally my conclusion. Why did you change the bandage color from red to green? Because that's such a shit change. Sorry, guys.
You know what? I change it. It is not a retrospective. This is now a bash 9 dots. What the hell, you guys?
But yeah, I just wanted to say this. So, for example, that's a change someone's talked to me about, because I'm not always playing mages, but like there's been some complaints about the fact that the tired buff that you get that is sometimes so hard to maintain goes away whenever you travel through regions. And I think, for example, it's something they could have made so even if it doesn't really, like, it would make sense in a way for the tired buff to stay even when traveling through regions, because like you're not going to change. So the tired buff is linked to your lifestyle, and I don't think a mage character in roleplay would suddenly change his lifestyle because he's traveling and not maintain his buff if he's changing. Especially considering like weapon imbues go through traveling between regions, but the tired buff doesn't, so it does not really make sense. So yeah, that's just I needed to put this on because else I'm gonna get killed if I don't talk about this.
Yeah, guns do that too, which is interesting. Now, typically only when playing co-op, still has not ever been fixed. But when you go through a loading zone, the guns unload themselves.
Oh.
And so when you talk about, people are already complaining about how guns are tedious, and I don't want to have to reload, and especially the players who like put 6 guns on their hotkeys or whatever, and have to reload each one. Like when you walk through any load zone, you have to reload them all over again. Like that's a pain in the ass, and it doesn't work. It doesn't happen all the time, but you never know when it's going to do it, and when it does it, man, it's really annoying.
So okay, let me conclude. So yeah, thank you again, Sk0oMa, for coming by. It was a very interesting conversation, and I think it's also was kind of a necessary conversation, because it's been, having this kind of conversation has been at the back of my head basically since the release of a definitive edition, and so I'm very happy we could have this conversation now.
Too. Also, I'm really glad that we were able to just kind of murk everything with old lanterns.
Yeah.
We cleared out Vendeville like it was nothing while we were talking. We killed this little ghost guy that's usually pretty tough. Like anybody who watches this that's new, like I love that they're gonna get to watch this and just be like, oh, this game's easy.
Well, I died 2 times, so at least it's
but both of those times you were like talking and not paying attention, and like also I got hit several times while I was reloading my gun, and I'm just wearing tattered attire that I started. So like you guys do all right. This game's not hard, guys. Just
no, it's just hard at the beginning. Then
Yeah.
it gets
Invest the time into it. It is one of the only games I've ever played that I can say is totally worth it. You know, oh man, it really feels good and pays off as you do. So
yeah. So we're gonna end on this, and I hope to see you again because I'm definitely going to try and make more long conversations with this because there's so many things to discuss. Like we could discuss Elden Ring for a video of an approximately same length. There's other things about Outward that I kind of want to discuss. Maybe not always with you, even if you're probably one of the most insightful people I've talked about with about Outward. So it's always a pleasure to talk with you about the game.
even though you don't always listen to my advice, I
That
appreciate
is true. That is true. But we don't have to agree on everything.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that is, man, that is why this game is so great. So thank you so much for having me, for asking me to be a part of this and talk. I'm glad that I had the time to do it. And this was fun, man. This is fun. I'd definitely be happy to sit down and do it again.
Yeah, so see you again, guys, and thank you very much for watching. It's been my pleasure. Bye.
Peace.